The golden hour painted the Montana sky in shades of amber and rose, casting long shadows across the rolling plains. Sarah Beth stood at the edge of the wooden porch, her fingers wrapped tightly around the weathered railing. The wind caught her dark hair, sending loose strands dancing around her face where small wildflowers were tucked behind her ear. She had come to the ranch 3 months ago, carrying nothing but a worn leather satchel and a heart heavy with doubt. The old Henderson place had been in her family for generations, though she had never lived there until now. After her grandmother's passing, the property had fallen to her. Along with all the memories and responsibilities, she wasn't sure she could handle. The sound of boots on gravel drew her attention. Jake walked slowly toward the house, his worn cowboy hat tilted just enough to shade his eyes from the setting sun. His leather vest hung open over a faded blue shirt, and dust from the day's work clung to his clothes. He moved with the easy confidence of a man who belonged to this land, every step deliberate and sure. He had been her grandmother's ranch hand for the past 5 years, staying on after her death to help Sarah Beth learn the ropes. What she hadn't expected was how his quiet presence would begin to chip away at the walls she had spent years building around her heart. "Evening, Sarah Beth," he said, his voice carrying that familiar warmth that always made her stomach flutter. He stopped at the bottom of the porch steps, looking up at her with those steady blue eyes that seemed to see right through her carefully maintained defenses. "Evening, Jake." She tried to keep her voice casual, but she could hear the slight tremor in it. "How are the horses? Settled for the night? Storm's coming in later, but they'll be fine in the stable." He climbed the steps slowly, each creak of the old wood seeming to echo in the growing twilight. "You've been out here a while, something on your mind." Sarah Beth turned back toward the horizon, where storm clouds were indeed gathering in the distance. The wind was picking up, carrying the scent of rain and the promise of change. She pulled her gray shawl tighter around her shoulders, not just against the cooling air, but against the vulnerability she felt whenever Jake got too close. "Just thinking," she said quietly, "about what comes next." Jake moved to stand beside her at the railing, close enough that she could smell the familiar mixture of leather and hay that always seemed to surround him. He didn't push for more information, which was one of the things she had come to appreciate about him. He had a way of being present without demanding explanations. "Your grandmother used to stand right here every evening," he said after a moment. "Said it was the best spot to watch the world go to sleep." Sarah Beth smiled softly. "I remember. When I was little and would visit, she'd let me stay up past my bedtime to watch the sunset with her. She'd tell me stories about the ranch, about the people who lived here before us. She was a wise woman. Strong too. Reminded me a lot of someone else I know." The compliment made her chest tighten. She shook her head slightly, her fingers gripping the railing harder. "I'm not strong, Jake. I'm barely keeping this place running, even with your help. Half the time I feel like I'm just pretending to know what I'm doing." "We're all pretending sometimes," he said gently. "The trick is to keep going anyway." A rumble of thunder rolled across the sky, still distant but growing closer. Sarah Beth watched the storm clouds gather, dark and imposing against the fading light. Something about the approaching weather seemed to mirror the turmoil in her chest. "Can I tell you something?" she asked suddenly, the words spilling out before she could stop them. "Always." She was quiet for a long moment, gathering her courage. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. "I don't know how to be loved, Jake, not really. Every time someone gets close, I find a way to push them away. It's like I'm broken somehow." The admission hung in the air between them, raw and honest. Sarah Beth felt exposed, like she had just revealed her deepest secret to the one person whose opinion mattered most. Jake was quiet for a long time, and she began to regret her honesty. She was about to retreat into the house when he spoke, his voice soft and steady. "Then let me teach you." The words were simple, but they carried a weight that made her heart skip. She turned to look at him, searching his face for any sign that he didn't mean what he had just said. But his expression was serious, his eyes holding hers with an intensity that took her breath away. "Jake, I've been watching you for months, Sarah Beth, watching you care for this place, for the animals, for everyone around you. You think you don't know how to love, but you're wrong. You love deeply. The problem isn't that you can't love, the problem is that you don't think you deserve to be loved back." His words hit her like a physical force, truth wrapped in kindness. Tears pricked at the corners of her eyes, and she found herself unable to look away from his steady gaze. "What?" "If I hurt you," she whispered. "What if I run away, like I always do?" Jake reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away, if she wanted to. When she didn't move, he gently took her hand in his thumb brushing across her knuckles. His hands were rough from years of hard work, but his touch was infinitely gentle. "Then I'll wait," he said simply. "And when you're ready to come back, I'll be here." That's what love is, Sarah Beth. It's not about being perfect. It's about choosing to stay, even when things get difficult. The first drops of rain began to fall, cool and refreshing against the warm evening air. Lightning flickered in the distance, illuminating the clouds from within. But Sarah Beth barely noticed the approaching storm. All her attention was focused on the man standing beside her, offering her something she had never dared to hope for. "I'm scared," she admitted, her voice breaking slightly. "I know, so am I." His free hand came up to cup her cheek, his thumb wiping away a tear she hadn't realized had fallen. "But maybe we can be scared together." The rain was falling harder now, drumming against the roof and sending the scent of wet earth rising around them. Sarah Beth closed her eyes and leaned into his touch, allowing herself to feel the warmth and safety she had been running from for so long. When she opened her eyes again, she found Jake watching her with an expression so tender it made her chest ache. Slowly, carefully, she reached up and placed her hand over his where it rested against her cheek. "Okay," she whispered. "Teach me." The smile that spread across his face was like sunrise after a long night. He leaned forward, pressing his forehead against hers, and they stood there together as the storm rolled in around them. The rain fell in sheets now, but they were protected under the porch roof, safe in their own small world. "The first lesson is easy," Jake said softly. "You just have to be willing to try." Sarah Beth felt something shift inside her chest, like a door opening after being locked for years. The fear was still there, but it was smaller now, overshadowed by something warm and hopeful. For the first time in her life, she wasn't running from love. She was choosing to stay and see what happened next. The storm raged around them, but on the porch of the old Henderson ranch, two hearts began to learn the ancient dance of trust and tenderness. And in the morning, when the sun rose clear and bright after the rain, Sarah Beth would wake up knowing that she was no longer alone in learning how to love and be loved in return. The wildflowers in her hair had survived the wind and rain, still bright and beautiful against her dark hair, a reminder that some things endure even through the storms.